I've had to learn to evolve, and it's been painful. When something's long term, you value it more. If I get to a point where the subscribers on YouTube is 1 million, yeah, I'll be happy, but it's just a milestone. Everybody says have a why, have a strong why. The reason why I say that is because you'll quit.
You're not defined by where you come from.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big message that I always want to tell people. Like
you have to be able to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
When you grow up in ends, you don't realize it when you're confident, but you have an audacity to do things that ordinarily most people wouldn't be willing to do.
Yes, people, what's good? I think this is the first time that I've done an episode by myself. I'm hoping to do a lot more like this in the future. Also want to thank all the watchers and listeners that have been patient and have followed me since 2021, has followed the podcast since 2021. I really, really appreciate it. I don't know if I say that enough, but yeah, no, I really, really appreciate it. And, I try and reply to all comments on Instagram, on YouTube, everywhere, and do keep on interacting in the podcast. If you got like questions, if there's like certain guests that you want me to try and get, let me know. I'll try my best. I'm always trying to stretch the podcast and grow the podcast as much as I can. I'm also trying to introduce as many interesting topics and have conversations about, things that we normally don't, right? But I'm only one person, right? So if there's any kind of questions that you or any topics or any people that you think will be cool to get on the podcast, just let me know and I'll try my best. So yeah, just want to thank you for that. Also, thank you for being patient over, the random breaks. They've not all been planned, and I realized that my communication hasn't been the best in terms of saying, when I'm planning to do breaks. So the first one that happened in, I think around August, there was a little bit of like scheduling issues. Plus I was going to Ghana. Most of you know if you watched the episode that I did in Ghana. So I had a few scheduling issues. I was supposed to have a few more episodes go out before Ghana, but those kind of fell through. And then at the same time, I had to prepare for like a wedding in Ghana. It was very, very difficult to try and plan releasing a video and then saying that I was going to be on a short break. And then when I got back from Ghana, I was like, you know what? I might as well take this as an opportunity to take a break because, yeah, I've been going at it every week for a year, apart from, I think, a few weeks at the end of Christmas last year. So I thought, yeah, let me just take a bit of a break. So yeah, I've got really exciting episodes coming up. Just to give you a bit of an early one, we've got Amri coming back. So we'll talk a little bit more about the job situation because I know that there's a lot of people at the moment that are looking for jobs. There's people being let go of their jobs, unfortunately. So we've got that episode coming up. We're going to have an episode around property. So, buying property in 2024. What does that look like? And then we have a few other exciting ones towards the end of January, which, I won't announce that now. I'll let you have a bit of an imagination, but I'll let you ponder on that. So yeah, in this episode, I just basically wanted to talk about 5 things that I learned from, podcasting. I've now done over 100 episodes. I think that this could be applied to you if you want to start a podcast or if you want to start, a business or anything that you kind of want to start in life. It's not going to be, I'm going to try my best not to make it preachy because I try not to be that kind of person, right? I just kind of want to just kind of share my own experience and my own insights. So like the first point or the first thing that I kind of learned from doing over 100 podcast episodes, be brave. So, when I started this, I started interviewing people that I kind of knew through my page on Savvy Wallet and people that was kind of around me. You always have aspirational guests, right? The people that are kind of already known. But between that, you kind of don't even really think about those kind of guests, or you don't even think you can get them. There's lots of guests that, let me not say intimidated, but there's guests that you thought, oh, okay, they'll probably say no to me because I don't have that many followers, right? They probably wouldn't want to come onto my podcast. And then lo and behold, I've had guests that I never believed that I would get in 2 or 3 years. I've gotten them onto the podcast, right? Very, very early on, in fact, I'll say this story actually. So I think it's episode 10, and it was with a guy. It was so early on. I'm gonna get the number. So if you just bear with me, very, very early on, because I actually saw him very, very recently, and I told him that he had a very big impact, because obviously when you're first starting something, right? Of course you believe in it, right, to a certain extent, but at the same time you're kind of just working on it and then seeing if something will stick. So yeah, it was Kaiser, right? So he was actually episode 9, right? So when I had the call with him, I had that call with him before he came on the podcast, and he was like, yeah, so, where do you want to go? Like, what do you want to do with the podcast? And I said, I'm thinking, I was like, okay, let me think about this. And I was like, okay, I think I want to be like the #1 business podcast. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, I think you could do it. He like really believed in it, and in the concept. And, him asking me where I wanted to kind of take it, him saying, yeah, like, it's a really good concept. I like what you're doing. That instilled a lot of belief in me. And then when I had that episode with him, as many of you know, watching and listening that have watched that episode, it's a very, very good episode, very, very powerful episode. He was a very motivational person, very inspiring person. So yeah, that was one of the kind of situations. So I think being brave, and believing in yourself, and, having kind of a big aspiration, there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with, seeing something that you like or you want and like going for it. So that's what I've kind of learned with podcasting. If there's a guest that I want to get on the podcast, I'll reach out to them. I kind of don't care who they are. If they say no, they say no. If they say yes, they say yes. So yeah, I even forgotten. We've had Eniola Loco on the podcast. So she's a, media personality, big one, right? So, again, it was like, I was saying to myself, okay, she's probably not going to come on, but I'm going to do it anyway. That was the mindset. I'm going to do it anyway. She said no. She says no. If I didn't ask her, then I've lost the opportunity. I'll never have the opportunity, right? So you always kind of miss your shots if you don't take them. And I know that's like a popular saying. So moving on, the next thing I learned, kind of linked to being brave, is have a vision. Have a vision, have a very, very big vision. When I started the podcast, it was going to be UK focused. I didn't think, okay, I'm going to start interviewing people in Ghana. I'm going to get people from other parts of Africa to come here, other parts of the world. I didn't really think that far ahead at the time. And the only reason why I say having a big vision is because sometimes when you get to that place, then you're like, okay, what's next, right? So always have that big vision. I think it's very, very, very important to have a vision that you may feel is a little bit insane, is a little bit delusional, because once you have that kind of a vision, you're then able to work towards something. You have like a long road to work towards. So yeah, I think that was something that was like key for me, having a big vision. And my vision's evolving, that's another thing as well. Your vision will evolve and it will change at times. There's nothing wrong with that. The third thing, everything is long term. Yes, everything is long term. There are no quick wins. I've learned that through the guests that I've had on the podcast. I've learned that through doing the podcast myself. My numbers from when I first started to now have increased considerably, right? Obviously through being consistent, but also being here for the long term. So I've now done this over 2 years. Next year is going to be 3 years. Then 4, then 5, then 6, and 7, and 8, and 9, and 10. Everything is long term, and we learned this from, a few stories on the podcast, right? We learned this from Mark Slider Cuts, right? How long has he been barbering for? Over 20 years, right? It took him a bit of time before he was recognized, before he started getting, celebrity clients. And even at this point, it's not like he's even trying to chase them. His name is so big, right, that they come to him. But he's built his brand over, his craft over the long term. So I kind of learned that from him. We also learned it from Dr. Daniel Moses as well, right? You remember he fled from Nigeria. He was doing a few things before he got into property. He was first doing some shipping to Nigeria. He was at one point an Uber driver as well. So he didn't just fall into property, right? He was doing a few other things before, picking up skills in different areas before he got into property. And even when he did get into property, that still took him some time to get to the point where it's like multi-millionaire, status. So yeah, everything is long term. And I think that when something's long term, you value it more. And I was saying this a few episodes ago, right? There's a great book that you should read called The Dip. I'm gonna get the author's name for you because I think it's a great book to read, just to get you to understand why, long-term thinking is the way. So the book is by Seth Godin, right? So The Dip. And as I was mentioning on that episode, right, when something is very long term, right? So if you think about Microsoft, right, if anybody was to start like a competing business with Microsoft, right, the only one that right now can compete with Microsoft is Apple. But imagine Apple wasn't even here. It was just literally Microsoft and their software. If anybody was going to try and compete with them, it's a non-competition, right? There's no way that they can. What businesses are going to want to take a chance on a different operating system? Zero. Right, they're going to be like, who is this new upstart that has no kind of backbone? What's the security of their application? What developers are building applications on top of their operating system? Are customers going to buy any laptops with that operating system? That's all of that they'll have to overcome. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not only like the brand, it's the marketing, it's the trust. There's a lot of things, right? So the Dip talks a lot about that, right? Like, if you can get yourself into a niche or an area where you can kind of build a long runway and you can kind of almost get out of the tunnel, it's hard for your competitors to compete with you. So yeah, long term is everything. The fourth thing that I've learned is have a strong why. Have a strong why, not just a why. Everybody says, have a why. Have a strong why, a strong why. The reason why I say that is because you'll quit. You'll quit when the going gets tough. I'm telling you right now, podcasting is tough. It's not just me coming up here and just sitting here and talking to a guest. I have to do research on. In fact, even before I have to do research, I have to find the guests. Think about how I find guests. Instagram, right? LinkedIn, Google. Imagine trying to find a guest on Instagram. How long do you think that will take you? It takes hours, right? Not only that, then you have to kind of then try to find out information about them, right? To see if they'll suit the podcast, to just understand who they are, right? To understand if they've got kind of a story to tell, right? And then you reach out and then see if they want to come out. And then if they do want to come on the podcast and then you do arrange a date, then you have to start thinking about what your questions are going to be, right? In all different areas. So again, you have to go back to studying what they have to do. Then you come and speak to them, right? And then once you've done your recording, you do your edits, and that takes a bit of time. And as you've seen, the edits have improved over time. The quality has improved over time as well. So then you do your edits, then you've got to post to YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, Apple. And then you're then looking at things that, okay, how can I make it attractive for people to click if it's going to be on YouTube? How can I make it attractive for people to click on Spotify and Apple in terms of the title? So there's a lot of effort that goes behind it, and anything that I think that you do in life that's worthwhile, there's going to be a lot of effort. So if you're going to put in that much effort into it, you should have a big why, because there's going to be times where you're like, I don't even want to do this. I don't want to do this. And if you get to that point, only your big why is going to get you over the hump to be like, okay, I am going to do this because of this reason, right? I do this podcast because I want to empower people to become better at business, become better mentally, become better with their health. So That's the reason why I'm doing this. I love teaching people. Do you know what I mean? And I love also speaking to people and learning about their stories, right? But I don't want to keep the stories to myself. I don't just want to learn. I want to share those stories with the world. So that's my why, you know, and that's my big why. And that's what keeps me coming back. And then the fifth thing that I've learned is be flexible and willing to evolve. That's kind of like a double one. I've had to change approach so many times. I've had to evolve so many times and think, okay, for instance, I'll give you an example. For instance, the thumbnail. If you go back through my thumbnails, how many times did it change? If you've been with me, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while and watching it on YouTube, you've seen the thumbnail change so many times. I probably have like 20, 30 iterations, different versions of the thumbnail. And that's because I've had to learn to evolve, you know, and it's been painful, you know, I can't lie to you, to look at a work that you've done and you're like, how can I improve this? How can it be better? You know, it kind of hurts your ego, right? Because you think to yourself, wow, this is good. And then you improve it. And then actually what then happens is over the years, as I've improved my thumbnails, I go and look back at my old ones. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm glad that I improved it. So it just shows you sometimes when you have ego about things, don't have ego about it, right? Because I'm glad that I improved. It's only helped me, right? It hasn't been a detriment to me. So yeah, you have to be very, very flexible, willing to learn from other people, willing to be taught, and just willing to just continue growing. That's how you'll become who you kind of want to be. And that's how I think I'll become who I want to kind of be in the future. If I'm really serious about, you know, becoming the #1 business podcast in the world, then I have to be willing to evolve as much as I can to become the #1 business podcast in the world. And then the 6th, this is a bonus thing that I learned from, you know, doing over 100 episodes of podcasting. That's a lot of conversations, you know. That's over 100 hours of conversations. It's not quite 100 people because I've had a few people come twice, but it's definitely over 70 to 80 people that I've spoken to. The 6th thing is enjoy the process. Enjoy the process because so much happens so fast. I can't even believe I've been doing this for over 2 years, right? But when you get to certain milestones, it's just a milestone, is the truth, right? If I get to a point where the subscribers on YouTube is 1 million, yeah, I'll be happy. I'm not saying I won't be happy, but it's just a milestone, right? I've had to do everything else up until that point, so I might as well enjoy it, right? And I'll be real with you, there are aspects of you know, the journey that I don't enjoy, and there are aspects of the journey that I really, really enjoy, right? Enough to keep me coming back. I don't think that there's going to be anything in life where you 100% enjoy every aspect of it. And I don't need that to be true, because if that was true, that means that life would just be comfortable. And I kind of don't operate that way, right? Every week I'm kind of leaning. Every time I'm doing a podcast, to me, that's me being uncomfortable because I'm speaking to a new person. I'm creating new connections every week. I'm learning new things about the person. I'm doing research every week about a person. So yeah, just enjoy the process. Whatever you're doing, just try to enjoy it as much as you can. Don't stress too much about the numbers. Don't stress too much about other people, what other people are doing. Just focus on your own journey. Just make sure that you have your own goals and enjoy the process towards those goals. I think it's very, very important. So yeah, thank you. Those are the 5 or 6 things that I've learned, doing over 100 episodes of podcasting. I hope that this has helped you, and I hope that it will help you in the future as well. I might even come back and listen to it just to see if it's gonna, if I need to. Sometimes I think is a good point to reflect, right? Sometimes you need to remind yourself of certain things, right? If these are lessons that I learned, sometimes you need to remind yourself of the lesson. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed it, and yeah, I will see you in the next episode.